Well, thank you all for coming. We appreciate it. We're happy to have Tom here. I'll give you a quick background, but we did feed him permanis this morning, so if he's a little lethargic, you guys know why. We all understand that. A little background on Tom. Tom was here in January, and we had great feedback from that. Tom is a chief economist for AE Wealth Management. They help support our practice. They're a $40 billion firm. He knows exactly what's going to happen in the stock market, so you guys can fire away there. Tom is a West Point graduate, Army veteran, so he's a good man. We've gotten to know him pretty well, so we're excited to have him. Tom will start us off with kind of a halftime report, state of the markets, and then we'll finish off with a panel discussion on the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. So, have a good evening. Thank you all for coming, and you're up, sir.
All right. Hey, after when I'm done, say the Q&A, so you're up here with me.
Okay. We'll just pull the chairs out.
Yeah, but that's the rafter. Okay, everybody hear me okay? Yeah. Okay. How many folks were here in January? Oh, that's a good bit. So some of you might have to. What was that delay reaction? You didn't know where you were in January? Okay.
Can't hear you.
You can hear me. Can you hear me now? I'm using the mic. I'm gonna go with the mic. All right. All right. Now better. Yeah. Well, that's that great military education. Thank you. Okay. So. For those that were here last time, I might have to bore you a little bit about, people that don't know me seem to want to know where people come from, what they've done, what they're doing, where they live, that kind of stuff. So I grew up in New York City, grew up in the Bronx, left and went across the country, graduated from school, served in a bunch of different places, never really went back to the city. Kind of discovered the country, right? So we've lived out here, outside of Philly, for about 10 years before I took my recent job, and we've been living outside of Kansas City, Kansas, for the past 8 years now. And I love it out here in PA. It's great country. It's beautiful hills, and a little bit reminds me a lot of Kansas. So God, you guys are sharp tonight. Okay. So, long story short, me and my wife have been married 38 years now. Best decision I made of my life. She's my buddy. We do everything together. I got 2 kids. Oldest is 24. She is a geologist, and she works at the University of Kansas studying aquifer and ag stuff, which drives her crazy because every time we're in the car, I tell the story. I'm like, what's that rock over there? And she gets pissed off because I'm like, you're a geologist. Why'd I pay all that money to go to Penn State, Penn State, right? So, doesn't like football. I don't know why. I'm like, you went to a school that's got really good football. It's like, couldn't care less. But anyway, doesn't know her rocks. But she's the apple of my eye. Got a son who's actually 21 today. You want to feel old when your youngest turns 21. Right, that's something. So, anyway. All right, hey, your grandkid turns 21. You want to feel old. Right, come on now. All right, I feel old. Don't make it worse. Anyways, yeah, he's enjoying his final year at the United States Military Academy at West Point. He's still not jazzed. Still doesn't understand why he's there and why he wants to. It's like, listen, it'll be a good thing. But and I told the story last time. One of the funniest things he ever said to me was like he literally had the nerve to pick up the phone and call home during his freshman year and tell me that I didn't understand what it was like there. I'm like, all right, you need to go get a brain scan. All right. So anyway, that's what we've got. We got a cat on death watch, which is kind of sad. He's 17 years old. The guy won't move. His arms are all like swollen because his kidneys are shutting down. I think that's going to be a tough one for the kids, right? Because they've had him since they were 8 and 4 years old. So then we got a dog who's got 4 teeth. Like 3 teeth less than January because we found them. Literally all bark, no bite. She's about 15 pounds and just will bark her head off. I think she's going to have a coronary one of these days. Anyway, that's the end of that. And the lizard, believe it or not, might as well be an old ottoman. The thing will not die. We had this lizard since my kid was like 4 years old. It does nothing. I don't think it blinks. Anyway, okay, so that's me in a nutshell. Everything is good. We're happy where we are. Everybody's, knock on wood, healthy and happy. Can you guys see the charts and all? Okay. So what I wanted to start off today is I want to talk a little bit about perspective since we're past the middle of this year. And I know you can't read that. I know a lot of you eagle eyes out there can probably spot all this stuff. But what I want you to look at this chart, and I want you to consider every one of those points on that chart, every one of those lines, every one of those descriptions is some sort of crisis. This is since 1970. Whether it's the oil crisis of 73, the OPEC mess, 9/11, you name it, right? I mean, there's always something going on. So the world is not short on crises, right? And now this hyperactive 24-hour media cycle that we have, there's a crisis even when there's no crisis, right? No real crisis. So what I need you guys to understand, and you guys have been around for a little bit, is you can see where that blue area under the chart is what the market has done during all those crises. So at any point in time, you could have thrown in the towel and said, "Oh my God, there's a crisis. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to lose money." Look what would have happened, right? So just with the next time you hear there's a crisis, take a deep breath, relax, and just know that you will always have crises. But look at the winning streak that the market had been on for the past 55 years, and and at any point in time you could have pulled the cord on this thing and jumped out, and you would have missed out on that. So that's important to understand. So there is a crisis right now, or supposedly, and what is that crisis? I didn't even know this chart existed. It was it's trade uncertainty. Okay, and you know why we're having trade uncertainty? Because of the tariffs, right? So Trump gets elected. He takes office. He'd been telling us he was going to raise tariffs on countries he didn't think we were being treated fairly. Okay, that's it. He's not wrong, but how you go about it is a little bit different, right? And you guys remember when we had COVID and they had the supply chain issues. So that was the last time we had an issue that did this kind of spike, and you can kind of see it. You can kind of see it right there. I don't know if this thing is working. Technology. All right, so that area over there, right? So, yeah, look, I'm from the generation, we write stuff down and stick it on the refrigerator for people to read, right? I don't do this notes nonsense. My phone rings entirely too much without adding to it. Anyway, so, Trump came out on April 2nd, if you guys remember, and he had the big sandwich board, and he said, today, you're paying this, you're going to pay that. Okay, and the world freaked out. Now, me being an old military guy, I believe in, some of the old adages, right, where you divide and conquer your enemy, right? You don't unite and conquer your enemy, and that's what he did when he blasted everybody. Everybody freaked out, markets freaked out. We had a tremendous decline in the stock market, and people were like, "What the heck's going on?" Okay, well, now we're working through it as he's put together some deals, and some of that heat's come off, and the market's come back as a result because it didn't turn out to be as bad as the crazy people were saying, that there's a crisis and this and that. We've yet to see how it's going to play out, but at the end of the day, it wasn't as bad as it was feared, and the market sold off. And if you were one of those people that threw in the towel, like I showed you that big blue chart before, you would have been one of those people that have been sitting here and saying, "Oh my God, I sold when the stock market dropped 20%, and I'm still sitting here waiting to see the next 20% drop," and it never happened because it went back up. Okay, so people are curious naturally who we trade with. Okay, so you guys in PA here, you trade a lot with China. If you notice, there's three main colors on that chart, right? There's red, there's green, and there's yellow for China. Those are probably our three biggest trade relationships, right? Obviously, by how you can see how much business we do with all those guys. Okay, that said, remember when I just talked about you don't unite your enemies, you kind of divide and conquer? My play would have been that we would have worked on Mexico and Canada and China, right? Because they're the biggest ones. Let's get those deals done first. We've done deals with all kinds of other people, yeah, but we still haven't done a final deal with China, and we're still going at it with Mexico and with Canada. So that's something that we should worry about. Where do I think we have leverage? Well, we got leverage with Canada and Mexico. If you look at the blue lines on each of the charts, one is how much stuff they send to us, and the other chart says how much we impact their economy. So China sends us a ton of stuff, the red line, but we don't impact their economy worth a spit, their GDP. So they could hold out for a long time because they could sell their cheap junk to Europe and other people, and it doesn't matter. They can wait us out. Plus, remember, these people have 100-year plans. We have 2-year election cycles, so God knows what happens in another, year plus. But when it comes to Canada and Mexico, we got some real leverage there. So he can renegotiate some better deals, but yet that still hasn't happened, and I think those will come out eventually, but at the same time, it just seems to be, it's not, I'm gonna get it done in 30 days, like when he came up with the sandwich board. Okay, we hear a lot of talk about tariffs. Okay, tariffs haven't been a thing since about, I don't know, the 1900s, when they dropped off a cliff. And if you guys look at the chart, you see that when did they kind of flatten out? I mean, for a long time, we funded the government with tariffs. That was Alexander Hamilton's deal, right? He was going to like charge other countries goods, and we didn't even have an income tax. We didn't have any of this stuff. But, that was kind of erratic because other people could control what they send us, so therefore they could control how much we got. So, they kind of evened that out. But what's interesting about it was what happened. Does anyone remember what happened in 1945? I'm not saying you were there. I'm just saying, do you remember what happened? We all went to school, right? I mean, it's not a dig. World War II ended, right? So what happened? What happened right after World War II? You had the Cold War start, right? What was that? Yeah, okay. That had nothing to do with tariffs. But it's not untrue. But there were a lot of babies, but they weren't tariff babies. All right. So what happened was in 1945, you had the Soviet Union create a Soviet bloc, the whole thing like duck and cover when we were kids, the Cold War started. And we looked at tariffs, or the rest of the world that was kind of on the edge as to which system they would use, ours or the Soviet style system. And I said, why don't we have them do more business with us, right? And how do you do that? You don't make having business with you more difficult. I mean, the analogy I use is like pretend there's 2 bars, right? There's one bar in a corner and one on the opposite side of the street. Okay. One bar has happy hour, ladies' night, drink specials, is open at all hours, every imaginable beer under the sun. Okay. The bar across the street has 2 kinds of beer, right? It's never open. It stinks inside, and the service stinks. Which bar would you rather go to? I'd go to the fun bar, right? So that's what we kind of did. We used tariffs, or the lack thereof, as a policy tool. So we trained the rest of the world to trade with us because we created a market for them to trade to us, okay? So we didn't charge any tariffs. They wanted to protect their internal industries. They charge us tariffs. So that's kind of where the rub with Trump is. We all have fairness issues. We all get worked up about, hey, that's not fair, that's not fair. Well, this is his, right? So he says, Soviet Union's gone. We don't have to worry about them anymore. Why do we have to, continue to open our door for people that are ripping us off? That's the logic. So I just wanted you guys to understand that tariffs were used as a foreign policy tool, right? Every bit as much as, the Cuban Missile Crisis and arming Western Europe and, going to Vietnam and all these other places, that were more political and more, geopolitical type seismic things. This was a very nuanced approach, but it was still a foreign policy tool. Our government, I'm proud to say that we're over 37 trillion in debt now. So I don't know what you say about that. If I think there's anybody more irresponsible anywhere, it's our federal government. They love to spend money that isn't theirs on things that we don't want and giving it to people who don't need it. Okay, so be mindful of that, because I think, where the tariff thing is more of a episodic thing, I think it's going to get solved. This is not. This is like a chronic disease, right? Every dollar that's taken out of your paycheck and the government decides how it's going to spend it is one less dollar that you get to spend on what it is you want to do. So it's impacting your standard of living and your quality of life. But I mean, just look at the crazy run-up since the financial crisis. I mean, it's like just elliptical. It's going crazy. So we've got to get this under control. So I was kind of happy when they brought up Doge, but that turned out to be kind of here's a joke, right? Doge became kind of a Dudge, whatever. But, you know, I wish they'd found more, but, you know, the sad thing about it is, you know, these are entrenched interests, right? And these people do not want to give up anything, right? So it's like trying to get money back from the government is obscenely difficult. So just be mindful of that, because I think this is probably going to be our bigger problem longer term. Okay, so let's talk about, you know, again, we'll get back to the whole crises thing, right? So as soon as the tariffs hit, you started having people, you know, saying, oh, this is going to be, all these terrible outcomes are going to happen, right? And what happens is, you know, if you're berated 24/7 by the news media that the tariffs are going to make prices go up, things are going to be bad, what's going to happen to you? You're going to start feeling pretty bad, right? You're going to start feeling like I was about 2 o'clock in this afternoon when I went into my Permati brothers' self-induced coma. You know, you're not going to feel great, right? Because you're constantly being bombarded and being told things are not great. And then what happens? Because of that, you start thinking to yourself, oh, inflation is going to go up, right? Inflation, all things are going to go up, all these prices are going to go up. What's interesting for folks to remember, and I think, you know, you get a lot of people that are coming on, well, things aren't cheaper, things aren't cheaper. Guys, that boat has sailed. You had a guy for 4 years that ran crazy inflation, and when they talk about inflation going down 2%, that's the increase. That's the rate of increase, okay? We're not talking about, and I don't want to be one of these guys that said when I was a kid, I could get an ice cream cone for a nickel. Okay, that's not happening anymore. Prices went up, and now they're just going up slower. If you're cheering for prices to go back down where they were, you're cheering for a recession, you know, the damage was done. When they printed all that money and dumped it into the system, people went out and hired people, they charged more for their stuff. Next to getting money back from the government is getting businesses to lower prices and lay people off. They just don't want to do it. And so I think, you know, people need to understand that. So expectations for inflation shouldn't be going up. They should be kind of like, well, we kind of expect them to. The best you can hope for is they kind of stay where they are. So I want to be clear with folks on that one, because you get a lot of that on TV. People will turn around and they say, well, you know, prices aren't back down again. Well, they're not going to come down. Okay, maybe commodities like eggs and gasoline and things like that, that'll be a little bit easier to manage. But, you know, if you're used to selling a $50,000 car, you're going to keep charging $50,000, maybe $51,000 next year. But at the end of the day, you're not going to knock that thing down to $32,000 because it costs you more money to make it, and they're paying more people, and everything else is expensive. So, anywho. Defaults, this is another one I look at, right? This is when I talk about whether we're going to have a recession or not. So this line is kind of light. Look at my little thing, man. How come? Oh, it's barely can see it. Okay, there it is. All right. So this little line here is student loans. Okay, we know how that went, right? They're paying them back, so it's kind of up here now. I got to update this chart. But if you look at the biggest things that are an issue when you start off kind of getting into a little bit of economic hardship, is you're going to have car loans, right, and credit cards, and that's these two right here. So these are your car loans, and those are your credit card payments. Credit cards are running around 23% interest rates, and people really didn't change their behavior. We spent a ton of money during the pandemic on stupid stuff, things we didn't need. I won't tell you my toilet paper joke. You know, it was funny because you want to hear it? Well, no, I was just going to ask. So remember last fall, was it last December? And there was going to be that port strike. Remember they were scaring everybody with that? So my wife goes to Costco and she's like, you know, you won't believe it, there's no toilet paper. I mean, French perfume, wine, Mercedes parts. Okay, I get all that because all this stuff is coming on those ships. But, you know, I mean, look around. You got PA, you got all these woods and all these, you know, Minnesota and all these places. We don't make toilet paper? So just be mindful of that. You know, it's like that maybe I'll do like one, you know, that stupid chart I saw about trade uncertainty. I'll make one like toilet paper consumption, and I'll publish that, start getting paid money by all the big economists. Anyway, so, you know, but seriously, what you're looking at here is you're starting to see credit cards ticking up, right? And that's absolutely the worst possible thing you could be doing in this day and age, right? When rates are 23, 24%. And carrying a big credit card payment, that interest is going to be a really heavy burden. And not only you're not paying down the principal, so you're literally going to be, you know, like a ball and chain with that. Car loans as well. You know, cars have gotten expensive, and when you start seeing car loans kind of fall off and start ticking up, that kind of tells you that, you know, we may be in for a little bit of a rougher ride. The good thing is home mortgages, unlike 2008, that's that bottom kind of golden line down there. We're not defaulting on our homes, thank God. I mean, that would be really bad if we started seeing that. Okay, I won't spend a lot of time on this, but there's something called the yield curve inversion, and that basically means that you demand more yield the longer you tie your money up. If you do that, that's a normal sort of cycle where people say to themselves, I have confidence in the long term. When you start demanding more for short-term loans, that's a scary thing, and that means that we're headed for recession. Unfortunately, it's not a perfect predictor because it flipped back in 2003 and stayed that way, but we still didn't get a recession. So they're back to normal now, which also has given me confidence that we won't have a recession, like probably in the next, at least the rest of the year, maybe the first half of next year. A lot of money on the sidelines still, folks. A lot of people, I don't know what happened to them after the pandemic or financial crisis, but there's a ton of money still sitting on the sidelines. So when people start talking about, you know, the market going down, you know what? There's a lot of money to jump back in. And you've noticed that even with this most recent sell-off that we had in April, the money came charging back in. So there's money out there, and so long as people have money on the sideline, I think it'll help keep the stock market up, and I think it'll also keep us out of serious financial and recessionary troubles. Houses, I mean, you guys know what the deal is right out here. I mean, who everybody has a house here, I'm assuming, right? Anybody still have a mortgage on it? Okay, nobody has a mortgage. What's your house worth than it was 5 years ago? A lot more, right? Have you seen, I mean, young people can't afford to buy a home because, you know, it's like they're not $200,000 anymore. So when your home is worth a lot, you know, you kind of feel better about that too. So you've got cash in the bank, you got a home that's worth a lot more. So that's another one that bodes well for the economy going forward. Now we may have a slight recession. We kind of had half a recession just recently because of the tariff stuff, but it never really materialized. But I don't think we're going to be in for any kind of longer financial pain. Okay, here's one of my favorites. I like this one, right? This one, it shows you how many people are flying on a daily basis, right? And if you think things are bad, right, are you planning on taking a trip? I mean, it would be so bad that you just don't care anymore and you're just going to take a trip and you need to just, you know, go to some beach and get wasted. Okay. But every flight I'm on is crowded. Every single one. It's like they start sending you emails 3 days before, 4 days before you fly. Are you flexible? No, I'm not flexible. I just booked the damn thing. I want to go where I want to go when I want to go, right? So, you know, when that kind of drops, right, that's when you got to start thinking about, because to me, that's totally discretionary, right? You don't have to go on a trip. I don't know if you guys, you know, I grew up in a very strict Greek family. Like, we never went on vacation. We never went out to eat even, right? We just went to other Greek people's houses and my mom would make fun of the food. Hey, you get entertainment where you can. But my point again is, like, every single flight is packed. So when you start seeing that go down, then I would say, okay, we're in trouble. So until then, you can listen to all the blah, blah, blah out there and the talking heads that are telling you, you know, this time it's different, but it really isn't. You have to start seeing people not spend money on stuff they really don't need, and then you start seeing some pain, then we're in trouble. So that's a good one that I look at. I think it's super interesting. And if you guys look at this dippy one here, that was, what was that one? Was that the pandemic probably? Yeah, and then that was a classic too, right? You're sitting next to a complete stranger, you don't know where the heck they're from, and they're telling you they're safe. But then you go to the park and you can't play with your kid or talk to your friends because, you know, that's not. Okay. All right. As a species, just be honest with yourselves. We all worry, right? We worry about everything. Okay. And this is where I talk about that blue chart that we saw with all the different crises. So we encounter one or two in a row, we start getting shy, right? It's kind of like, you know, if you touch something hot, you don't want to go back and touch it again. Well, if you convince yourself that we're having problems, we start shutting down and going from being a fine-tuned instrument, right, to being an on-off switch. We're either on or we're not. We're in or we're out. And so when you have a couple of bad things happen, typically, as an investor, you start worrying about the absolute worst case. When is the market going to go down between 20 and 40%? How often has it happened? Not very much. 4 times, okay? Since 1937, you've had that kind of outcome. But what we forget is that, you know, we miss out on the 75% of the time that the market is up, okay? And, you know, I talked about this last time. I asked somebody anybody in here, baseball geek, like baseball scholar? Anybody? Mildly, halfway interested? All right, here, we have a contestant. Sir, wearing that fine Yankee shirt, because I'm a Yankee fan too.
Not because you haven't been back to the Bronx.
No, I've been to games, but I haven't moved back there. Why would anybody saying go back to the Bronx? That's why you're here. Okay, so please name me all the members of the Hall of Fame, Baseball Hall of Fame, that bat 750.
None.
Okay, there you go. So that's my point, right? So unless you're the coach of Alabama, or you're the coach of Kansas basketball, you're not getting fired if you're 75% right. Okay. And the challenge here is we forget that, so we lock down, and then every year we miss out. We miss out on these, great opportunities to let the market work for you. So just be mindful of that when you start hearing about these things. If you don't need money tomorrow, it's not a crisis. If everything is good in your life at this point, and you've got a financially sound plan that kind of helps you get through a bad time, let the system work for you. Because I think a lot of times, people try to outsmart the market, and they get burned. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So real quick snapshot, this is as of last Friday. We've had a little bit of cooling off in the market, but we're up. I feel like we should be up 30% this year. It's been exhausting, right? But we're still up about 10%, almost. Maybe we're up about 8.5 now because the market's been down all week. But a lot of that is just anticipation of tomorrow. Powell's going to give a speech, and we'll see what he says because the market's expecting a rate cut in September, so we'll see how that works out and see whether he's completely lost it or he's still halfway reasonable as far as, the problems he's been having with Trump, right? Or Trump's been having with him. Not been very happy with the fact that he hasn't done anything. So we don't know whether he's just being like petulant now and just like digging his heels in and saying, I'll show him, because he knows he's out in May. So the question is whether he wants to be vindictive or not. We need a rate cut. It would be helpful, but we'll see what he says tomorrow. Inflation, 2.7%. A lot of that is the housing that I talked about, right? I don't know what you guys are running for gas here. $2-3, somewhere around there. It's below $3 in Kansas.
20 cents to $4.
How much is it?
It's almost $3.89.
Here? For the good,
56.
for the good stuff?
Yeah.
You got to talk to Josh, man. You got to get a hold of Josh.
We have the highest tax rate on our gasoline than any of the other companies we can.
That's terrible.
85 cents. 85 cents on a gallon.
Okay, well, I'll make you feel better. Last week I was in California, and they were paying like $6 a gallon. It's not all taxes, but it's a lot of it is environmental mumbo jumbo and things like that. But they about fainted when I showed them the national price. They were like, "What? Where's that?" Well, that's you and your state. But yeah, you guys got to, again, get on that governor of yours, because you guys got a lot of resources in this state. They still make oil here, right? Don't they? They have a refinery. I know they had a refinery when they used to live outside of Philly.
Well, they got the cracker plant. We do gas, natural gas.
Okay, well, that's where we are nationally. I'm sorry I hurt feelings. I didn't mean that. I didn't mean for that, but Okay, oil is down, $63, right? It's. I was surprised because the whole Ukraine thing and all that, bombing Iran and all that stuff. I would have thought it would have spiked up. It hasn't, which is a good thing, because I think that's an input. Oil goes in, and energy goes into everything that's produced. So if it costs more to buy your oil or your energy, guess what? You're going to charge more for your products. Mortgages continue to be a stickler. I know I tell the story about my dad got a mortgage in like 1978, and it was like 14%. But the house was $120,000. But I also did the math, and $125,000 was like $600,000 today, or some crazy amount. So where we are right now with mortgages, if you've been alive for more than 20 years, probably it's about where mortgages usually are historically, about 6%, 5 to 6 to 7%, somewhere in there. But the problem is the houses are so damn expensive, right? After 2008 and all that housing collapse, builders stopped building houses. And so we've got a shortage of houses. So now young people want to buy a house, but then, it's expensive and they can't afford it. So, it's a challenge. And then to throw on top of that 6%, like who's going to loan you when you're 25 years old, $600,000? And then, then on top of that, that's a killer. So we could use the rates to come down a little bit. Maybe some of you greedy baby boomers can get rid of your houses and, make room. Not likely. That's what I say. It's like, I'm not giving up my house for punk. I had a struggle too. Okay. So let's talk about what those crises do to your mind and when you misbehave and you mess up, okay? If you are good enough, does anyone know what market timing is? Okay, so market timing is a simple concept, simple to understand, very difficult, if not impossible to implement, okay? What it basically means is you know when the market is at its highest point to sell, and when the market goes down, you know when to buy. Okay, that's two independent decisions. When do you sell, when do you buy, okay? I don't know anyone that can do that, the first part of it, right, let alone both parts. If you do, I'll buy you first class tickets to Vegas. My guest, I'll take you out there because it's nigh on impossible. Had my father-in-law, my late father-in-law, got out in 2008. He would like chew my ear off. Tommy, I got out. That's awesome. I avoided all those losses. He didn't get back in. You know what the market's done since 2008? It's up like 4-fold plus. So, that's where you got to be careful, right? So to me, I know you folks remember when you were growing up and you were doing something or not doing something and your parents would say to you what? They'd say, don't just sit there, do something, right? So this is one of those cases where you don't do something, okay? Where you just let the market and that 75% that I showed you guys work for you, okay? That's a winner, okay? So if you miss the 50 worst trading days, if you were that good in this time period here, 88 to 2022, you would have gotten 20%. Great, that's fantastic. That's double what the market got you. But if you didn't know and you missed the 50 best days, you would have only gotten 2%. And I'm saying there's a whole lot of stress between 20 and 2%, right? Where you could have done absolutely nothing and just stayed fully invested through that time period and earned 10%. You sleep well at night, you don't have the stomach, you don't feel like that Siomades stuff right now. All right. Here's another example, right? Like the benefits of staying invested longer term. If you invest in the stock market for one day, you're about a little bit over 50%. That's good, better than a coin flip, but at least to the good side. If you stay invested for a year, you're apt to win 3/4 of the time. Remember what I talked about, that 75% of the time, right? But then look what happens when you get up to like being fully invested for 10 years or 15 years. You virtually never lose. And that's just investing and following a plan and being disciplined, right? So again, I can only say it so many times and show it to you so many different ways, but here's volatility. Here's the coin toss I talked about, right? It's really volatile. It could be up and down, up and down, up and down, heads or tails, whatever one day. But look what happens. You keep tossing that coin over and over and over again. Eventually it starts coming up, a pattern appears. Now maybe a coin is a bad example because it's always going to be a coin and a coin, but eventually it becomes two heads instead of just a head and a tail. The volatility goes down, right, over time because that 75% is working for you. So anyway, that's it for my prepared remarks, but I'm happy to stand up here and take some questions if you guys have anything you want to discuss. I'm happy to answer those, but again, I want to thank you guys for having me out. And anybody besides Carl here been in the service? I want to thank you, every veteran in here for their service. Thank you very much. Appreciate the sacrifice. But okay, so questions. I'm happy to take any if you guys are willing to ask. Wasn't that good? Yes, sir.
Can we go back to the beginning of your presentation about the tariffs?
Sure.
And,
Which one did you want? Did you want to see the map of the? Tell me when to stop.
wait, no, you went too far. Keep going.
Here?
No, you said tariffs are a small part of the revenue.
Oh, this part here. There. Yes.
So, my question is, who's negotiating these tariffs? What part of the government actually? You said we still have China, Mexico, and Canada to settle up with.
That would be the Treasury, wouldn't it? Bassett and those guys?
The Treasury Department?
I think so, and he's got a trade representative there.
So they go at it and is this like an everyday job or something?
I guess. I mean, they get these people in a room and they start saying, this is what we want. And then they say, no, this is what we want. And they go back and forth. And I suppose that's how the deals get done. But it seems to me, again, knowing Trump like I do, he's going to declare victory one way or another. And things may be the same and nothing really changes and we just don't know it. Everything is just so damn complicated, right? That we're constantly bombarded with information and we don't know how much of this stuff is true or not, but a lot of it really manifests itself is if that information puts you in a bad mood, then you don't spend, then the market collapses and things like that, right? So that's why I think the psyche, when everyone wants to talk about hard data for things, right? I think the psyche of the people is the most important thing. Emotional behavior of folks, if you just don't feel right and are unhappy about things, you're not going to go on vacation. You're like, okay, I don't want to buy another car. Or maybe you want to see someone not do well because you're pissed off. That's what I'd say. But, as far as who's negotiating, yeah, it's supposed to be that Besson guy. And yes, sir.
Do you have any concerns about reliability of data coming out from the government? It was all, you say the wrong thing, you're fired. You have to be able to count on what you hear.
Yeah, it's a concern. I would say that's part of it, right? You're just bombarded with information that you don't know is true or not, right? So, I don't know how it's like one side said that they overreported 700,000 jobs. The other side comes in and says, well, we gave you this number of jobs, and then the same person that gave you that number, gives you something else. So, you have to start to try to believe some of this stuff, but
Maybe they're both right. I don't know. What do you?
But how can they be both right? It's like, can they not add? We're giving them $37 trillion. They can't add? I'm with you. I would like to depend on the data. When my pilot tells me we're flying at 30,000 feet, I want to be confident that we're at 30,000 feet and we're not at minus 30 feet, right? Because that'd be a bad thing, right? Exactly. Yes, ma'am.
Back on the tariff question, if the government was funded from the late 1700s to 2019 just on tariff money, the tariffs that we are supposedly collecting all these millions and billions of dollars already without our three major tariff countries, where is this money going to go?
So, okay, correction, right? We stopped collecting tariffs in 45. And we weren't really funding the government seriously with any kind of tariffs since about 1900s. What happened in the early 1900s? You had an income tax, Teddy Roosevelt, thank you very much. And the government, and then you had a couple of world wars, and the government got really excited about spending money, and that continued. Now, if you hear Trump, he says two things. He says, one is we're going to use that money from these tariffs to pay down debt. I would applaud that. Then in the same breath, at another venue, in front of another microphone, he'll say, I want to give people a bonus. So which is it? So the challenge I have with the government in general is there's just an immense amount, there's just a tremendous amount of lack of discipline. It's like they can't think more than what next check they're going to write. And that's why I'm fearful of that. So in a perfect world, if he says we're going to get $1 trillion worth of stuff via tariffs, yeah, pay down the debt. But will he? And even if he does that for 3 years, that's $3 trillion out of $37 trillion. Next guy comes in is going to say, wow, we get $3 trillion worth of money from tariffs. Let's spend that on stuff.
Now, being an economist, moving forward, the numbers that you're given, how do you know what's
You don't.
proper or not?
So anytime you hear like a 10-year number, just write it off. These guys don't know what's going to happen in a year. Okay, it's unfortunate, but it's like the guys that tell you, it's like, well, the Earth's temperature is going to go up by 5 degrees, and you're like, oh crap, I'm scared. Like, what am I going to do? And then you find out that if everybody in the world runs their gas stove 24/7, it'll do it for 300 years. So you have to caveat that stuff, because that's all they always come out with, these excuses of why this is going to happen, and it's all posturing to try to get you worked up and support their cause. Now, I don't know, it would be nice to see the $37 trillion come down, but when they say, oh, well, this, we'll get into it a little bit when we talk about the bill that just passed, but these guys, they say, oh, it's going to add this much to the deficit. Will it though? Who knows? And that's what the challenge is. That's why economics is called a dismal science. Pretty dismal, huh? Okay. Any other questions?
I think that's a
Oh wait, we got more over there. We got people.
maximum debt can be before the country is.
Again, very, very subjective. I mean, if the economy grows like gangbusters, you could support more debt. I would say, we start getting close to 50. It's not a good thing.
Who do we owe the money to? If it's China, if we say we're not going to pay you.
Yeah, we owe money. We owe money to, to a lot of it, as we do owe it to foreign countries. So we could default on it.
China is hurting right now, isn't it?
Huh?
Yet they're lending us money.
Because we're paying them 4%, and they can't get that anywhere else. So, and they don't care about their people. They're not going to spend it on their people. So there's that. Last question? Yes, sir.
Much be fair, really, just another tax.
In some respects, I'd say yes.
I mean, you can look at it.
But here's, I don't know, we probably won't cover this like we did on the webinar or the WebEx podcast, whatever they call it, these things. You just have, if you tariff some things, you have less money, right? What causes inflation is too much money chasing too few goods, right? The reason we had inflation from 21 to whatever it was, 23, 24, was because they gave people a bunch of money and they spent it. So if something costs a lot of money, more so because of a tariff, and you have $100 and you buy that thing that used to cost you $10, now it costs you $20, you don't have $90 still to spend on other stuff. You have $80. So there's sort of a softening effect, and you've got all these companies and people that want to be competitive. Their first knee-jerk reaction isn't to just jack rates up or prices up. So I think it's super nuanced because and they always want to portray things to you as being black and white. 30% on China, therefore everything you get from China is going to be 30% more expensive. I think that's naive. So yes, it's complicated, and I understand the fairness aspect of it, but I think we live in a global world, and there's just stuff that we won't do or don't want to make here, and we got to buy it from other people. But I think they should, if they want something from us, then they should either pay, or here's a concept, how about nobody charges tariffs on anything, and you just let it go, and you buy the best thing from wherever the heck it's made, or buy it from here. But then we wouldn't need politicians, so. Okay. All right.
So obviously a lot has changed since July 4th, and we kind of wanted to bring everybody together so we can have a conversation about this. And obviously we're going to talk about the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, and we're not here to debate whether it's beautiful or not. But I think the one thing we do know is that it is big. We had a conversation on a podcast earlier around this. It was about 40 minutes, so if we don't touch all that, that'll be sent out to all you guys probably later in the week or next week, so everybody will have that. But does anybody, I'll ask you guys this because I already asked them earlier, does anybody know how many pages this bill was? 587 pages. Brandon read the whole thing. So when we ask him questions, he's prepared. No, but the first thing I kind of wanted to bring up, and Brandon, help us out with this, and I'll kind of pass the mic to these two as we have this conversation, but I think the biggest part was there is a change, and they're calling it permanent, but the tax brackets are now extended, and that impacts every single one of us. So we'll kind of start there and talk about that, because there's a lot of other things that impact some of us, not everybody, very personalized, but the tax bracket extension does help every single one of us in this room. So you kind of want to touch on that?
Yeah, so, you know, one of the things that they did is, and I know we talk about this a lot, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, right? The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was enacted in 2017, and it lowered taxes for all of us. Now, there were a lot of nuances in there, right? They took some stuff away, they gave us some stuff. So whether we agree with it or not, it happened. That was set to expire at the end of 2025, and we were all going to see higher tax rates. So a lot of us in this room were planning for higher tax rates, right? Well, now we get the benefit of having those lower tax rates extended, which means more Roth conversions, more tax planning. And so they say they're permanent, but when a new administration comes in, they may change it, right? So we still have to do some tax planning. There's a lot of opportunity around this. One of the things that we wanted to talk about today is the bonus deduction. Does anybody know what the bonus deduction for seniors is?
Gotta be old.
You gotta be old right now. Yeah. So the standard deduction actually increased up to $15,750 for an individual and $31,500 for a married couple. Correct, federal income tax. So this would be the standard deduction. You subtract out your income from those numbers, and that's how much income you pay taxes on. If you're over 65 years old, for the next 3 years, from 2025 to 2028, if you're under $75,000 as an individual or $150,000 as a married couple, you're going to get $6,000 in addition to the standard deduction. So up to $12,000 as a married couple. Anybody been told that Social Security is no more tax on it? It's not true, right? There's still tax on Social Security. There's a big misconception. I think the Social Security Administration sent out an email. It was just a big misconception. What it does, though, is it lowers our taxable income with those extra deductions, right? So we pay taxes on less income, but Social Security is still taxable, right? So that's a question that we get pretty much every day.
Anything you want to add on there?
Yeah, just real quick, Brandon said that, you know, it's mostly permanent. Just be mindful, right? Again, we'll go back and talk about perspective, right? I mean, the last transformational tax reform we had was with Reagan. Okay, I sincerely doubt that the muscle that it took to get this through. I mean, remember, J.D. Vance at one point had to break the tie, and it was like all like run by like, you know, by the skin of its teeth. So the odds of something, you know, the next administration or several administrations down the road of getting the kind of political horsepower behind changing taxes, we probably won't see in our lifetime, because it is really a hard lift. So he's young. He hasn't seen as much stuff as we have, but just understand that, you know, you and Sion moving the mountain to get a tax bill written. So, you know, we've got this probably till the time, at least the tax part of it, not the Social Security stuff and all the other little stuff that's included in there. But we're going to have this probably for the rest of our natural lives. So.
Yeah, and the senior bonus deduction, that's $6,000 per person, that is only in effect from 2025 through 2028. So main point of that is taxes are on sale right now, have a plan. We know we've all talked Roth conversions, things like that. The next thing I want to talk about is probably one of the more controversial pieces here. It's the Trump accounts. So these are basically savings accounts for children. So anyone who was born, thanks Randy. So this is anyone who was born, what's the date? Here, you know the date. You want to talk about Trump accounts?
Yeah, so obviously I'm the smarter one here. So if you had a grandchild born from December 31st, 2024 until January 1st, 2029, you can get a new account set up. It's $1,000 per person. So what we were talking about today on the podcast, think about what $1,000 could grow to compounded in the market for 60 years. I mean, that's a lot of money. I almost don't want to say the amount because of compliance, they'll probably yell at me, but it's literally hundreds of thousands of dollars by the time that child turns age 60. So these are powerful things, and whether you agree with the guy or not, whatever, I really don't, we can see both sides of it, but it's a powerful tool if you have kids or grandkids, especially right now. That's gonna be it's gonna be worth a lot of money one day. Now the one stipulation is they cannot touch the money until age 18. And they can use it for education and a new home purchase. So they can get that money out in a tax favored way. So those are some of the advantages of the account. And so there's been a lot of questions on it. Any other questions on those types of accounts?
What if they don't want a higher education or they don't want to buy a home? What happens to that money?
So they will pay taxes on it. As of right now, there's not a ton of information on it, but it says you're gonna pay capital gains tax on it. So anything, if you put $1,000 in and it's grown to $10,000, they're gonna pay tax on that $9,000 of gain. As of right now, that's what I read about it. Could be a little different, but.
So the only people that are less responsible than the government are 18-year-olds? My point was, like, why tell them about it? Just let them find out about it when they're 60, and then they do actually have some money to spend, right? Because, once you tell these kids they can get their money out at 18, think of the things, we've seen it, right? So that's my only concern about it, right? Is the fact of the matter is kids are going to do silly things because they're not mature yet, right? And so that would be my biggest concern with it. Is it a noble idea? Sure. But can they be disciplined? And that's the part where, I think it's better than nothing, but at a minimum, and hopefully a lot of them will use it for school or to buy a home, but that would be the challenge again. It's like self-discipline is in short supply.
Yeah, the other component on this is the money must be invested in index funds, and custodians don't have, there's no way to open these accounts yet, so they're calling it for 2026 when they'll be eligible to be open, so we don't know a ton about that just yet. Yes, sir.
Is that $1,000 pre-tax, post-tax?
It's given from the government. So again, that national deficit, you will see what it does, but they're calling, and we'll talk about this, $2.8 trillion added to our national deficit by 2034. Again, like Tom mentioned earlier, that's 10 years out. We don't know if that's gonna happen, but that $1,000 is given by the government to any child born between the dates Brandon mentioned earlier. So, and then you could also contribute an extra $5,000 per child per year. Probably shouldn't say this, but there's conspiracy theorists out there, we kind of talked about this, that it's kind of the beginning stages of privatizing Social Security. Think about it, you're funding accounts for minors, you're starting it when they're born. Like Tom mentioned, 18-year-olds are irresponsible. My parents are here, they'll tell you about Brandon and I. We weren't.
Your friend, you had friends.
Yeah, we had friends, we know what they did. So, obviously, there's a couple other deductions we want to talk about here. There's auto loans, the SALT increase. Anybody know what SALT is? SALT is the state and local tax deduction. It used to be capped out at $10,000. It is now $40,000. And then there's some benefits to auto loan deductions. You guys want to touch on that one?
Yeah, so now they're not really clear on, they say it has to be assembled at the end stages in the US. So I don't know what that means. We talked about it earlier. Maybe they just slap a sticker on it. But you get to deduct up to $10,000 in interest per year on that vehicle. And that's only available from 2025 through 2028. So if you are looking at buying a car, you could deduct some of that interest potentially.
Yeah, I would mention, a lot of guys in here, you folks remember the old, used to be able to deduct your credit card debt, used to be able to deduct your car loans. That's really old school. I mean, I don't know that it'll really help American car manufacturing, maybe. Did you mention that the standard deduction was going up?
Yeah.
Okay, so the standard deduction is gonna go up. I don't know how much of this salt stuff is gonna, because I don't think you can use one or the other, right?
Yeah, right.
So, you know, $40,000 instead of 10,000 was what the allocation was. So if you live in areas where you're paying high property taxes and have, you know, places like New York and California, I think that was just one of those bones that was like thrown to the representatives of those states to get them on board to vote. But you know, again, a lot of this stuff seems gimmicky. I was surprised that they weren't going to say that they were going to fund the babies $1,000 with tariffs. What about that? Like,
I got a baby December 2023.
remember?
Oh, man.
Remember when Trump said Mexico was going to build a wall and pay for it? It's like, so now China's going to pay for our kids' houses at $1,000, and they're going to pay for it.
Canada's gonna pay it for.
Yeah, so we do have an example. So we had a client ask us, hey, what is my actual tax savings going to be? So what we did is we have two examples here. One was for pre the new tax code, right? The one big beautiful bill. And then we have an example showing what the tax bill would be with the new bill. And so on $120,000 of gross income, after you take out all the deductions, the total tax bill pre the one big beautiful bill would have been basically $8,100 for the year after deductions. With the new bill, your tax bill would be about $6,500, and that's if you're over age 65. So that saves you about $1,600 in taxes with the new passing of the bill. Now, whether you believe in it or not, we just kind of wanted to show you these numbers so you know there could potentially be a tax savings, which means there's more opportunity to actually tax plan and do some Roth conversions, or when we're doing Roth conversions and tax planning, potentially staying under certain limits if it makes sense for you, right? Because if we know that you're going to get an extra $12,000 standard deduction, maybe we want to kind of keep your income a little lower for the next few years and get those extra deductions, right? Now for some of us in here, it may not make sense. So that's why it comes down to working with us and really making sure you have a tax plan.
Yeah, I mean, there are some savings to be had. Obviously, you guys have seen some of the tax planning we do with the CPAs and things like that. So we're working on this. We're very proactive about it. The one thing that I think, and then we'll kind of wrap this up for questions, but we need to have a tax plan in place. We need to be prepared for this. There are some opportunities in the tax code that we can take advantage of, but I think one thing, I heard this recently, it's not a matter of if we're going to pay taxes, right? It's a matter of when. And we've all heard the RMD conversations that we had, so we have to be proactive, take advantage of what the government is giving us now, but also be prepared for what is coming later on. With that, we'll kind of wrap it up, because I know Jacqueline said we got to be done by like 8 or 8:15, or I'll get yelled at. Any questions?
With all the money you guys control, why do you afford more than one microphone?
That's a great question.
No, we had two.
Hopefully we didn't run out of food or beer. Should we end on that? Any other questions? Carl?
So if you're under 73, what are the pros and cons of doing a Roth conversion? What's the importance of that?
I'll take this one. Under 73, we know at 73 we flip to the government's plan, right? They tell us this is how much you have to take out, and it's based on your age and your account balance, which both are going up every year. So at age 73 or 75 for some of us, we're on the government's plan. They're telling us how much we have to take out. Right now, or before that age, we control what comes out of our IRA, and we also know what the tax brackets are. Like Brandon mentioned, we know what the tax brackets are, and we know they've extended them, which allows us to kind of game plan for them. They've been playing chess for years. We've been playing checkers, so we're kind of just trying to match the game.
Yeah, and so, a lot of us have saved into tax deferred accounts, 401ks, IRAs, 403bs. We've deferred that tax bill. And then when we take that money out, that's when we owe the taxes. And so if you think about this, everybody just looks, they want to look at what the tax rates are, right? I'm going to be in a lower tax bracket when I retire. Well, when you factor in, all IRAs count as ordinary income. The more ordinary income you have, the more you pay on your capital gains tax, the more you pay on your Social Security, the higher your Medicare premiums are. When you have money in a Roth IRA, it doesn't affect capital gains, it doesn't affect Social Security tax, it doesn't affect your Medicare. And there's no required minimum distributions on a Roth. So there's a ton of tax benefits to having your money tax-free. It's just how do we rip the Band-Aid off and get it there in the best way, in the most efficient way.
So I'm older, how do I have that benefit? I mean, if I'm 68 years old, and I got 5 years.
Yeah. Well, it really depends on what you want to do with the money. I will say that. So if your whole goal is to donate all the money to charity, well, you can donate your required minimum distributions. If you really want to pass your money on to your children, well, if you're in the 12 or 22% bracket and you could pay taxes now and give them money tax-free versus they might be in their peak earning years, they're in 32% bracket and they have to take this money out, pushing them into higher brackets. So it's very specific based on circumstances. So we're not going to rip the Band-Aid and pay it all now, but like I said, it is very specific. So for some people in here, it makes sense, some it does not.
We had another question in the back.
Yeah, the $6,000 bonus deduction, is that $6,000 a piece?
Yes.
Per person.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if one of us is over 65 and the other isn't, still get 6,000.
Correct, if you're under the income limits.
Yeah. And it phases out at $250,000 of joint income, married filing joint. So once you get over $250,000, you get no bonus deduction.
That's a good point. Any other questions?
A couple weeks ago, there was talk from the IRS that there was going to be stimulus money given out. How much is that misinformation?
I don't know anything.
I haven't heard that one either.
What was this? Do you know the source?
I saw it on the internet.
I mean, it's definitely true. I'm sure, hey, listen, I'm sure if you can triangulate it and you see it from 3 or 4 different places, then there's probably some truth to it. But if it just came from some rando account that you have no idea, I mean, there's so much stuff on a daily basis. It's just so painful almost. Like I'm at that age where we started using computers, right, for the first time at work. So I was like pre that, and it's amazing to me like how far we've just leaped in the last 40 years, right? And the amount of garbage that's out there too. So not saying that it's not true. I just haven't seen it. I think there would have been more of an uproar if it was a thing.
Not true.
I mean, if you get one, I'd like to get one too.
We'll take one more, Eric. Question.
I know it's anybody's guess, but what do you believe would happen with Social Security? There's discussions that it could be cut 10% or whatever in a few years, running out.
Yeah. So the projection is the Social Security Trust Fund will be depleted in 2033. So 8 years from now. At that time, they would only be able to pay out about 80% of the program cost. So imagine all of you getting a letter in the mail saying we're going to cut your benefits by 20%. I don't think anybody in here would be happy, right? You guys put a lot of money into this program for all these years. So we don't necessarily think they're going to cut benefits or eliminate them altogether, but they have to make changes to the program. So one of those might be future tax increases. One of those may be push full retirement age back for us. We might be 80 when we get it. So those are changes that have to happen for it to continue. But they are working on it. I know they talk about it all the time. It's just, you guys will put too much money into this program. I just can't see it changing for your generation, but for ours, it may change. So now that's speculation. I don't know for sure.
People are living too long.
Yeah.
Well, that's putting, but the other thing is politicians won't let it happen. They will never get reelected again.
That's the third rail. So here, That's interesting that you said that we're living longer. So you guys, Social Security as a concept, or retirement, came out with Otto von Bismarck in Germany in the 1880s, okay? Otto, the father of modern Germany, decided that the retirement age was gonna be 65. What was the average lifespan of a male in Germany?
64.
Yeah.
So that's why I think all of this like nonsense is that, you know, politicians are gonna play games. You know, they realize Social Security is a third rail of politics, right? There's political suicide for any of these guys. I doubt that they would cut benefits for people already on it, but like Brandon said, they'll monkey with the other stuff. They'll raise taxes on the working so that they pay more than whatever they pay now. They'll get rid of that limit, because there was this donut hole where, you know, you would make a certain amount up to, you know, I don't know, whatever it is now, it's $170,000, and then anything above that, they don't take any Social Security out, so they'll just make all of your income subject to it, just like Medicare. They'll tell people they gotta work until they're 83. So they won't be able to say we cut it, but in reality, that's what they're gonna do. Because there's no way they can keep on the path they're on right now, so.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. They have a cap on if you make too much income, you stop paying Social Security taxes. I think everybody who's over certain limits would say, hey, I'm okay to pay a little more in tax. So that's one of the things that they talk about all the time. It's just nobody wants to pull the trigger on that. So, but I do think that would make a lot of sense. My personal opinion.
You want to close this out?
Yeah, so if anybody does have questions on the big beautiful bill, we would love to meet with you guys. In the next few months, we're going to be doing a lot of tax planning, so you guys will definitely be in the office. We'll be talking about it. But if you want to schedule a 15-minute phone call and just jump on a call with us over the next few weeks, call into the office, you know, tomorrow or next week, and we'd love to walk you guys through some of this stuff if you do have personal questions. So, yes, yeah, just text, yeah.
Especially when it's the tariffs.
Yeah. So thank you guys for coming. We appreciate it. Thank you, Tom.